We'll be taking you through an agenda today. We're going to start with a design change request and how you can communicate those within the Onshape platform. I'm going to assign Mike a task. He's going to go through some design option parameters using our configurations. He's also going to run a simulation. We'll show you the wealth of collaboration tools that we have within the software, and then we'll wrap back up with analytics here at the end. So fairly often in engineering, you get changes. It used to be you design something and it went off and it lived for now till infinity. But now we get design request changes all the time. So we're going to show you how Onshape can facilitate those design changes within the software itself. So I'm just going to go, and we have this leaf blower system, and we want to be working in this engine here at the end. And we want to reduce some weight down in these components. So all I need to do is go into my subassembly where I want Mike to work, and I can send him a message. So I can just type in his name, and I can say, and I'm an engineer, so I cannot spell. And I can assign that as a task to Mike. So in case he's not in the software right at this moment, it would show up on his list of to-dos. And I can actually flag this component for him to work on right here within the software. So I can just assign that task to Mike and then go off on my merry way. And Mike will see that when he logs in. So I'm going to stop sharing and Mike's going to take over.
Yeah, this is so much fun. Let me share my screen. And of course, you can now see my screen. And I'm going to hop over to my action items center where I can actually see any of the action items and activities that are happening. So instead of Post-it notes all stuck to my monitor, or emails, that can easily get lost, I now have the ability to see all of my action items right here. I use an Onshape Enterprise account. So I have an interface that shows me 4 lenses of information here at the top. I have an activity feed, my main documents page, a place for analytics, which we'll talk about later, and then the action items. So those kind of messages like tasks and things can come into the action item center or in the activity feed where I can see, kind of like a Twitter or Facebook style social media feed of everything. And you can reply in line or go into the action items here, view that comment. I already have the document open right here. So it also just shows up in my handy dandy comments panel here. Just recently updated Onshape to have this nice panel view so you can have the comments front and center in the document. I can even see Jenny is in the document with me. So very similar to many of the modern software as a service apps where multiple people can be in the same design together, right? And of course, I might want to just, say sure thing. We want to reduce that. Maybe I just want to get confirmation on it. Of course, I can see the face that Jenny had highlighted for me, but maybe just to double check, I want to add a brand new comment with a markup right here. And I can, highlight the region, point it out, be triple sure that's what I want to talk about. And I could actually add this, this face here, right? And question mark, and, Jenny could see that as well. And we could be quite certain, what we're doing. I could even follow her screen. She could follow my screen. Many, like Jenny said, a myriad of ways of sharing and collaborating. So the next step here is to actually undertake this task, right? So I'm working in Onshape on a branch right now, a branch for the design for manufacturability here. So I have this branch called DFM Start. We have a work in progress kind of main branch as well. And several change orders have come along the way in the history of this design since we started working on it back in January. So on this DFM branch, what I'm going to do is, perform these edits, right? And to reduce the weight of this, there's probably a couple of things that I could do, right, to reduce the mass. I want to, first of all, understand what that mass is. So Onshape has always had mass property calculation, right? But you could click on this button down in the corner, select the component, and see the mass for a single component. But did you know that you could actually see the mass for all of the components using the custom table functionality within Onshape. So custom tables allow you to show various bits of information about your part studio. So I have a part studio with these 8 parts. I want to see the part masses for all those 8 parts in one go. This is really handy. And I can see that the connecting rod here is about 20 grams. Small engine for a leaf blower, right? So it's pretty lightweight, but every bit counts. If we can extract maybe, a few more grams out of this, this will really help with the performance perhaps. So let's go in and make the edit to the connecting rod. As you can see in my feature tree, I have 62 features, and I grouped them into a folder here for the connecting rod, like such. Now, to put this lightening in, I want to, hollow this out. I could obviously just go in with normal CAD features, doing offsets and slots and, all these different things that you would expect in a CAD system. But what if we could actually make this change in a more robust way using the wonderful world of custom features? So custom tables happens to be an example of a custom feature. You can actually add custom tables to your interface using, this add custom tables button and browse the sample library right here. But custom features, if you haven't used them before, they're quite powerful. All you have to do is just Google Onshape custom features. It'll bring you right to the page. And I have a very large list of custom features that I've added over my years here being Onshape. I try to keep up on all the great ways we can extend the Onshape user experience. And one of those features is called Lighten. So you can obviously add this to your Onshape toolbar. This is a public one that you can find very easily. But the Lighten feature, what it does is it removes material from a surface. So all I had to do is pick that surface, right? And it's automatically applying parameters that make sense for that geometric area. Right? So here I have 1 millimeter thickness for the walls, and I have a tool radius here of 1 millimeter as well. So just like I was taking a machine tool and hogging out the materials, right? So I'll just leave it at that for now. And you can see that I have a Lighten feature in my feature list here, and I could go back and modify it. Now, that obviously reduces the weight by quite a bit, by almost 25% here, it looks like. Now, maybe I want to try a few different things, though. I don't want to just go with my first try here. I might want to go in and configure this design so that way we can perhaps try out different scenarios for wall thicknesses. So I'm going to use our powerful Onshape configuration functionality to perform a design study. So you can create it using lists, checkboxes, which are turning things on and off, or configuration variables, so you can actually type in a number between a range. I'll use the list function, and I'm going to create a configuration here. So this configuration is going to be for the wall thickness on that Lighten feature. So I'll call it wall thickness. And in the wall thickness, I'm going to say I want a 1 millimeter wall thickness. And this is the physical name. So I'm just going to type in, the name that I want it to see. So I'll have a 1, a 2, and maybe one without any wall thickness. And then I can configure that feature. I can go right into the Lighten feature and configure the thickness. I could, if I wanted to, I could configure the tool radius or the suppression state. So I can mix and match the different parameters right there. So of course, if I don't want the wall thickness, I would, uncheck that. And then for this, I'll actually change the thickness right here. And it gives us this beautiful menu at the top of my feature list here. And I can go in and try out the different sizes or lack of sizes, right? So just like that, very easy to do. Another clever thing you can do, because Onshape allows you to have multiple tables, is configure multiple items independent of one another instead of in one big kind of spreadsheet like you would with a lot of other systems. So you would go and create another list. And I'm going to call this the rib thickness. And we'll call this 2 millimeters and 3 millimeters. Okay. And I'll just go into extrude 3, which controls that. and click the depth value. That adds it right here. And I'll set the values to what I'm looking for. All right. So now I can play with the different options, right? 2 and 3, none and 3, right? So very easy to do. I could look at my part mass table as I'm playing with this too, to understand what's going on. So if I went to 1 and 2, this is 14.519, but this looks a little iffy to me. Let's crank it up to 3. That's looking a little bit better, even though it's only a tiny amount heavier. So I think that's what I want to do. But to confirm this, I want to use one of our Onshape partner apps. So if you go to the App Store in Onshape, there's one of our partners here called OnScale Solve. This is a multi-physics simulation tool that works in the cloud using high performance, engineering computing, right? So let's go ahead, load the results that I ran earlier for this connecting rod. The OnScale application will read the Onshape data into the system, and then it will, you can even have it like run all of the configurations at once. So I already ran this earlier. It just timed out for just a second while I was running the other part, but here are the results. And I can look at this, hover my mouse over, the different areas to kind of get the area of the von Mises stress plot showing up there like a probe. But, you set up your fixtures, you run the simulation, type of study is all here, and you get your results. So I'm going to take a screenshot of those results and add them to my comment interface right here. So here, you can not only make comments on the fly or markups on the fly with comments, you can attach your own comments, right? So I'll just take that. Here are the stress results for the 1 and 3 versions. And I usually don't speak like a robot. I only speak like a robot when I'm typing. So just don't mind me while I do that. So here I am. We have the results right here in the comment list. And I want to, let Jenny know that this has happened, right? So I could, add a comment to Jenny, replying, maybe down here, all set. Maybe we even want to get the customer to look at this. So I'm going to add a comment to the customer, which is Jenny E. Johnson. Oh, just saw it right there. There we are. And Jenny is not a CAD person. Jenny E. Johnson, Jenny, the original Jenny is, of course. But I have some answers for you. And I'll just add that as a comment. And I will stop sharing. And now Jenny can take the reins here. As long as I can find my share button.
I'll just take it back from you. How's that work?
Yeah, just take it back. Yeah, take charge.
I'll just do what I do. So I'm going to come back in as the customer role, so we don't have to have 3 people in this webinar. And as soon as I do, you'll notice that my view is slightly different if you're paying attention in Onshape. I can see those comments. I can see Mike's stress results that he's put into the comment panel. But I can also have a simplified interface here. So as Mike said, if you're working with suppliers or vendors or customers that aren't CAD savvy, so to speak, they have a very simplified interface that they can work in. Mike didn't have to save anything out. He just shared the document with me as the customer, and I can come in and interact now. So I could do my own section view. I could see the properties panel. So if I wanted to see what's going on in there, I can even toggle an appearance panel. I can see the configuration panel that if Mike has put those in as well. And I can see that part mass table. So it exists in the document. So anything you share is shared in this document. I can see that comment panel, toggle that on and off, so on and so forth. But because Mike has given me these parameters and not predefined configurations in the traditional sense that it's 1 by 3 or 2 by 6 or 9 by 5, I can adjust these parameters all on my own. because Mike has come in and created them. So anybody who participates in this document now can see the different options, see the mass change, so on and so forth. So as that customer role, I can come in to that document and just interact with Mike myself. So I can type back, looks great. And again, I only talk when I'm typing, when I'm demoing. It's hard not to, it's funny.
It is, it's so strange.
1 millimeter and 3 millimeter option. So I can just be part of the workflow within Onshape. You didn't have to email me anything. The documents stay secure for Mike's company within Onshape. If we sever this relationship and we're done, he could remove my sharing ability from this document at any time as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and send it back to Mike now.
All right, great. Back over here. I see Jenny's comment is already over here right now. So all I have to do is kind of, finish off. I'm going to close my assignments here to clean up those tasks. Those are completed. So that shows me that I have completed those tasks. I need to, get this ready for production now. So I need to go to a detailed drawing. So let's just go over to the drawing that I have waiting for me. And we'll let it refresh, because we've added some updates to this. So this drawing is a custom template. You can see it's filled out all my information, previous revisions that we might have gone through. I'll just go in and set my dimensions appropriately, right here. So that looks pretty good to me. We have a dimension right over here, 7 millimeters, a couple of tolerances. It's looking pretty good. It's in progress. You can see the watermark across the screen because I'm working in an open branch, not a released version. So let's release this. To release it, you right click down here on the object that you're interested in releasing, and we can now perform a workflow operation. Right, and I can make this a little bit bigger. We're actually going through a pretty default workflow, which everybody with Onshape Professional or Enterprise would have. It's just a simple one-step, either approve it or reject it kind of workflow, right? And Onshape's workflow system is very flexible in the fact that in this workflow, I can actually just have different approvers. Maybe I want Cody to approve it. Maybe I can approve it myself. Maybe I just want to let Jenny, the manager, know that this is coming down the line, and I want to release this under a release name. I treat these releases as engineering change orders or notices. I can add a note here, ready to release, and make a run of 10. So just like that, I can take our connecting rod, the drawing of the connecting rod. They're going to go to Rev F. So let me just use F in the release name there. And I'll just hit the release button, and that will submit it for approval. If I look at my timeline view instead of my comment view, you'll see I have ECO 9F being generated right here. If I click into it, it will actually show me that released drawing right there. And you'll see on the drawing, that, the approval has been done, approved 311 right there. And there's Rev F. I have it set to cut off and only show me a certain amount of revisions here. So just like that, we have our release. And the final thing I want to do is note to Jenny that we have a, there's other places where this connecting rod is being used that we need to check what's going on. So we should do a where used report, on this particular design. Let me actually do it from the workspace. That way I get the most wide range of reports available here. So I'll right click here. We'll do the where used, and it will show us all the places we're using this. And even, across configurations, it can work, but I can see all the different ECOs where I might have released this information, all the different versions. So it's a really, really great way of understanding what's going on in the product development process. So I might send a note to Jenny saying that, of course, we need to update the assembly drawing and the assembly and the exploded views and all that. So I'll let Jenny take over from here. So I'll stop sharing mine.
Excellent. And for our last screen share of the day. So now that Mike has done that release, a lot of the confusion, if you've come from a traditional PDM kind of environment, is how do you make sure that that's being used? When I come back into my assembly, I will see, even before I come into this tab, that there's an update pending on this tab for the assembly and which documents need to be updated, so that I can come in here and update this document. So I want to go to that new version. It knows it's going from C to F. I can update all of them and we're good to go. So you always can choose when you want to update something. So if you have an assembly that's out on the floor, it's been out in the industry for 12 years and you're making Rev B, you don't want to update that version. You only want to update going forward. So you have that level of control within the software. So I'm just going to make a couple of quick checks within my assembly here. So let me move our little Zoom panel out of the way. Our heads are always in the way, Mike.
I know.
I just want to check our exploded view and make sure that that's good. And I can see that I'm missing 2 bearings. So I'm going to edit this and I'm going to choose this bearing and just drag it back a little bit that way. And I don't like those explode lines. So Onshape gives me the flexibility to choose what I want to add in. And then I can do the same thing with the bearing up here, adjust those explode lines, and I'm good to go. So we have all the capability that you need at the assembly level. I'm all done there. I can check my bill of materials, make sure that it's up to date. And if any of you are not familiar with the enterprise level of the software, there's a bunch of enhancements that we have at that level. We can add in what are known as items. And in your engineering space, you always have the things you need to put into an assembly that you don't need to model. So you make a PDF, so you can put it into a PDM system so that you can, all you have to do is create a library within here. And you could even say what you want to put that on. So let me add the reference of that ball bearing and say how much I want to put on each one. And I can insert this item into my bill of materials. You can adjust your columns. You can do whatever you need to do. We also can make templates now within a bill of materials. So if you have a company standard that you need to follow, we can put those in. And you can obviously do an export to CSV if you need this bill of materials data further down the line, outside of the software purchasing needs to go order some stuff. Let's get that off to them. So my assembly's up to date. I'm just going to go check my drawing, make sure that that's all good as well. And I'm going to do a quick update on that, and that will update this document from the workspace. So again, we give you that control of what you want to do. And you can even build it in that you couldn't do a release if that update was pending. You can build all of that in as well. So while all of this has been happening today, while we've been doing all of these things, in the background, Onshape is keeping track of everything that we're doing, for better or for worse. If you're ever in a workspace, you make a mistake, it stays. But what we can do is within the analytics, we have the ability to see and track and maintain everything that's going on. So within my leaf blower project, I can see how much time Mike and myself and the customer even have spent in this document, how much time we've spent modeling, how many drawings we've done, how many releases need to be done or have been done, what documents are in here, who are the administrators, so on and so forth. So you get a really great up-to-date constant view of what's happening within your system. The analytics can also go so far as to do a permissions audit. So if you need to see who can see what, we're no longer working with customer X, what did they have access to? We're severing relationship with, we're trying to send out to bid a bunch of documents. Who do I need to send them to based on other documents? So you can see all of those, both permissions-based and documents-based. And users themselves can come in and see a dashboard of what they're working on, how much they've done. We've all been asked to do a timesheet at the end of the week. I have no idea what I spent any time working on this week. Let me go in my timesheet and let me go in my user list and have a visibility of what we have done and what we have worked on. So let's get back to our PowerPoint and kind of just bring you back through what we did today. So Mike spent time in our configurations or parameters. These can be modified in 3 different ways: free inputs, dropdowns, predefined lists, and they're still allowed to be viewed and modified by view-only users. They can be used in a variety of ways, as Mike showed: the thickness, the slots, different materials, different colors, whatever you would do for parameters. We then went into a design optimization. Mike showed you that mass table feature. I have a feeling many of you will add that to your part studios when you get back to work today. This is one of my favorite tables because a lot of times I need this information. I need to know how much this thing weighs, and I can track that right in here. He also showed you a lighten feature, which is a feature script. If you haven't spent time in feature script, go up, play with them, take a look. There's a wealth of information up there. We then did a quick simulation. Mike showed you OnScale, one of our partner products. It will sync right with your Onshape models and allow you to run those different parameters, those different versions. You hit go, you go get a cup of coffee, you come back. So you don't have to stay in that OnScale window. You could continue designing because it's running up in the cloud. We then showed customer vendor interaction. So it is view only access, but it's not limited to a static view. Vendors, customers, suppliers can come in and choose different parameters and different versions, different sizes. You can set limits. So if you don't want it smaller than 3 or bigger than 20, you can build those in as well. You also have that same communication within the system. So they can send you comments. They can see the mass properties. They can measure things if they need to. One thing we didn't show, but you can also allow them to export. You can allow them to not export as well. But if they needed to grab an export of a neutral file format, they could do that within the system as well. Yeah. Mike took you through some release management. You choose when you release a document. It's different than the versioning within the system, which is constantly checked and making a list of everything you're doing. And you can make immutable points of time with a version. You could then take that version and branch it off. But the release management releases just a document in its drawing, an entire assembly, depending on what you want to do at that particular time. So you release only what you need to survive, so to speak, that you need at that particular time. I did a little bit in the bills of materials in the exploded view, so you can communicate with the shop floor. If they're using an iPad out on the floor, they can pop that exploded view open, zoom in, zoom out, without having you to spend a significant quantity of time, since it's all live and all in the cloud. And then finally, we wrapped up with analytics. This is the real, I think, benefit of the enterprise level of Onshape, is that billable hours. We all know in engineering, sales comes to you, how long will you need to do this project? You say 80 hours, they sell it at 64, and then you're trying to get it done in 50. So you have a real good visibility to how much time is actually being spent designing and within your documents and all of those things. So hopefully this has given you a quick overview of some of the further features you can use in Onshape besides just the CAD. We all love the CAD part of it, but it's really the benefits beyond that we think is the benefits of Onshape. So now we'll hand it over to the moderator for questions.
Thanks, guys. Great presentation. We have a few questions here in the chat. I'm going to start with the one that was first, which is about action items. So he or she is curious if for non-enterprise users, is there an easy or recommended workflow for getting to the action items? Because as a pro user, it's found under the user profile.
That's right. It is under the question mark menu under the profile area. I can't remember exactly where it is on this screen, but you can get to it. And I recommend just creating a shortcut. I've hidden my my shortcut toolbar just for this presentation, but if I bring it back.
Is that something you want to share and show them?
You can see it. Oh yeah, sorry. I thought I was sharing.
I still had it.
All right, so you can see my screen, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, here's my bookmarks bar. And look what I have in my bookmarks bar. I have Onshape links, right? I have searches that I've predefined. I have my action items is actually one of my bookmarks. right? So everything in Onshape is a URL, right? So actually, that was for a completely different account for another Onshape account. So I'm going to get the heck out of that one. But you can create, so here's the action items for my onshapelive.onshape.com enterprise account. But if it was a professional account, the URL would be different. And you'd be able to get to your action items page just by going to that URL and saving a bookmark. Use the browser's functionality, right? I mean, you can create bookmarks for searches, we could probably do a whole session. I guess Onshape Live 2022, I'm signing up for a session on how to use the browser the most effective way with Onshape.
I do the same for my released parts, my released assemblies. I have a built-in search, so I can just hit the drop down, go.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So I'll stop sharing there because that's a boring page.
Great. You may want to share again, Mike. We have another question about comments. Any recommendations of how to organize comments for Part Studios assembly so it doesn't just become a dumping ground in that main panel there?
Yeah. If you have branches in your document, the comments are actually branch and version specific. So if you have comments that are only for that ECO, I bet a lot of people don't understand or know this. I'm in that ECO right now, which is essentially view only, right? But I want comments that are only, if I go to the comment list, you see it's blank. I have comments just for this ECO. I can add I'll just add a quick markup, point to nothingness, markup. And I've added that. We are changing nothing. If somebody knows the movie I'm referencing there, you're a winner in my book. But you can see this comment shows up just in that ECO that I'm in. So comments are actually version specific, branch specific, right? So that way you can kind of clean it up and have comments that make sense just for that context, right? So that's something I would highly recommend.
The other thing I've learned is that comments, if you don't have delete permissions, you also don't have the ability to delete comments.
Ooh,
so they
point.
do stay as a document of record kind of an item. So just keep that in mind when you're making comments, that unless you have delete permissions on the document, you also don't have delete permissions on the comments. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So Jenny
For
is
better
the
or
light
for worse,
user
as
here, would not be able to delete that comment that she wrote. If she says it to me, it's out there.
You can delete branches, but you could not delete comments. So. Any other questions, Katie?
Yeah, there's one more here about recommended strategies for highlighting parts in an assembly, whether to use different part colors or maybe another mechanism to help highlight in an assembly.
Yeah, the isolate tools work for both the Part Studio and the assembly. That might be a good way of initially highlighting things. I
like to use, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I like to use the display states and the named views. I find are very helpful for those.
Yeah, that's a great one. So I have this name view. This is my main view, I'll call it, right? And then I'm going to zoom in over here. And this is going to be, stage 1, I'll call it. And you can kind of couple these with like named positions and view display states as well. So if I wanted to hide this, the letter Y button is your friend in this case, right? So I'm going to hide stuff over here, and I'll call this out as a display state, and we'll call that stage 1 as well, just so I have a nomenclature to go to. So now if I'm over here and I get back to my named views, when I'm here at stage 1, I can get back there, the main one. And then, if I show all my parts, what is it? Shift P is the shortcut, is it? I forget. Shift P. Well, that's just turning on the reference geometry. Show all. We'll do it. There we are.
I was going to say, I don't remember the hotkey for that.
Yeah. I don't use that one too often, but J, K, there we are. We'll turn those off, and I can just get back right to those, the stage 1 here and the stage 1 here, right? So, and these things you can use like in various places in the software too, if you needed to have it in a drawing view or something. Some of these things are supported. And then, once you have the view, of course, adding a comment, wherever you zoom in when you're making a comment, like if I wanted to zoom in here and I added a comment, new comment, and attaching it to that face, right? That's another way of kind of saving it, right? So if I click right here, it'll bring me right back to that same viewpoint. So that's contextual in this case. So I kind of like that better now that I did it that way.
I invented something new.
I can't take any credit for this.
Excellent. Anything else, Katie?
Yeah, we got one more just coming in.
Excellent.
If an enterprise level organization contracts out some small work to a professional level organization, can they still access some of the same features such as task management and tracking the professional level organization's time spent?
Right. So when you're in enterprise, it's like a walled garden. The IP belongs to the enterprise organization. So you want to invite them in as a user as part of that enterprise. So here's my enterprise for Onshape Live. And if you were working with somebody, even if they did have a professional license of Onshape, you still want to invite them in as a user, whether they're a full or light user, depending on what kind of work needs to be done to your own enterprise. That way the IP stays central to the enterprise. It observes the rules of the enterprise. So you would make sure to have licensing available for those users. It's kind of a different world than the old world where you each have a copy of a CAD system and you're sharing files. You know, they would own the CAD system. In this case, you don't really own the CAD system itself. You're like Jim was saying in the keynote, you're accessing the system and you're accessing the IP in the system. So the IP in this case belongs to the enterprise, and you want people working in your enterprise, you invite them to your enterprise. So that's the kind of thought process there. Very similar to how you think of a PDM. You might own a PDM and somebody else might own a PDM. If you're going to work with somebody in the enterprise's PDM, you invite them into that enterprise's PDM, right? So it's kind of a similar concept.
That seems to be all the questions I see, and I think we're close to the end of the session here.
Excellent. Perfect timing as always. So, all right. Thank you everybody for attending. If you have any questions, find us on LinkedIn and social media and all of those things. We're always around. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Mike. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Katie.
Have a good one.